Hi everyone, Tom was here back at it with another TV Junkie TV review, and we are doing 1883, the Yellowstone universe, I guess you could say, origin story. So let's talk about it on Tom Was Here. Okay, I'm going to speak to just a portion of you. Not all of you will understand this, but some of you might. In the 6th grade, I had never actually used a computer prior to 6th grade. In the 6th grade classroom, we had a computer back there, and we were able to play educational games on it. I know, I go way back. But something I was unfamiliar with is that there were these floppy disks, and on these floppy disks there were certain games. And there was one game that was most popular among all other games, and it was the Oregon Trail. And in the Oregon Trail, and this is a handheld Oregon Trail that I got at Walmart, because this game made such an impact on me. It's the first PC video game I ever played. But anywho, Oregon Trail has a legend. And for those that played it, they know it. It taught 6th grade minds the world over really stuff they were not prepared for. Things like dysentery, typhoid. It was all fun and games at the beginning. You'd put your friends, Sally and Dougie and Billy, as the people in your wagon, and then you try to ford it across the river, and Sally drowned, and Dougie drowned, and Billy drowned, and then you slowly died of starvation or sickness. The Oregon Trail was brutal. Basically, that was the education of that, is that traveling the Oregon Trail was a tough go. And really, they never really had a show or movie that I can remember, and please correct me if I'm wrong, at least that I'm not remembering currently, that covered in gritty, grisly detail how tough it was to travel the Oregon Trail in the 1800s. Until now. 1883, the limited series set in the Yellowstone universe, because just like Walking Dead and more importantly Marvel, now you can build a universe out of everything. They've done it with DC shows now, they've done it with all types of shows now. Everything has to have a universe. Now, this is set in the Yellowstone universe. Yellowstone is a show about a guy who has a ranch and has to, basically is protecting that land from all these people that want it back, including the Native Americans that were originally on that land. But there's quite a few people that, don't like him and his family, and it's a good show. But this is, I'm going to put loosely set in the Yellowstone universe, in the sense that it's the same family. It's the Dutton family, their great-great-great-great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather, how many generations it goes back, trying to make their way to Oregon. And your main character is the daughter. Elsa is her name. I believe the actor's name, Isabel May, is the lead character and narrator, but she's the daughter of the parents, but I cannot remember their name offhand, so let's call them Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, because that's who they're played by. So they have to go out west. They end up getting together with this group of other people that are traveling the trail, these people that came over from Europe, and are now traveling to attempt to get greener pastures in Oregon. But they, it's... So basically they end up getting a hold of them, and all these people travel the trail together. Now, I didn't realize this was an Oregon Trail show. I did not realize jumping in, kind of what this was. I thought this was just how they established how they got to the Yellowstone Ranch from Yellowstone. And it kind of does that a little bit. But mostly it's traveling the Oregon Trail. And everything in the video game, in the computer game, in the PC game of Oregon Trail just about is represented. Diseases, famine, thieves, hunting, only carrying as much meat as you can back to the wagon, wagons breaking down, attempting to ford a river with disastrous results. I didn't realize this, and that made me even more fascinated to to kind of travel the trail, because like I said, I have not seen the experience, and it really kind of hit home, because when you're 6th grade and you're looking at these, even I playing this as an adult for fun, because I would go back and play it. it's like, oh, Mary has typhoid, or Mary has, whatever, or, oh, you got snake bit, you lose 3 days, or you went the wrong trail, or you're traveling rough conditions, or you jump to ford a river and you lose all your food, or you lose your supplies, or thieves steal your supplies. All of those things are real things that happen to people going on the Oregon Trail, and very few made it. Very few made it. Say, let's put it this way. There's quite a few that made it, but in comparison to all that started, very few made it. In the case of 1883, they started with a whole group of people. I mean, let's say they had 130 people. I think the people that actually eventually made it to Oregon was like 8 or 6, or, it might even been less. I'm not saying all of them were that bad, but they had to go through some stuff. You have to go through some rough stuff on the trail, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great show. Now, when you have a cowboy show, you have to put a script in a little box. This only happens for people like Samuel L. Jackson and Patton Oswalt with TV, but you keep a script in a box in case Sam Elliott shows up. And if it's a cowboy show, Sam Elliott will probably show up. And then that's when you pull out the show or movie, basically. And that's when you pull out that piece of the script and have Sam Elliott do there. Because Sam Elliott is the movie cowboy. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, he knows what he is. He's actually been in some hot water this week for comments he made. Sam Elliott, is the quintessential cowboy and does great work here, being like one of the, I guess, the protectors of these immigrant people that are traveling the trail. The other cast is great. Everybody does their job really well. The guy, can't remember his name offhand. I can't remember his character name or his name, but the guy that's with him does a good job. The featured people that are on the trail does a good job. But the main story is really around the daughter of Faith Hill and Tim McGraw, kind of growing up in this world, just having just turned 18 and traversing it through with kind of the backdrop of the Oregon Trail. And she gets into all types of stuff. She falls for this cowboy. He ends up getting killed. So then she falls in love with a, the cowboy's body's not even cold yet, and she falls in love with a Native American, gets married to the Native American, and then she ends up deciding she's going to continue to travel the trail with her family for some reason instead of staying back. And I don't know if it's because there's times when she was just going to leave the family, and didn't care, but then she decided to go with them. And that's basically the main extent of the story. But the hook of it is that while she's traveling this trail and getting into these situations that, people are slowly getting killed off, and, they're slowly dying from, bad water or diseases or thieves that are coming in to take their stuff and kill them, and just, their group's dwindling by the moment. But as the group's dwindling, she's getting kind of stronger and more independent. She's a character that you want to root for, that you want to kind of be around, and you kind of like, what she's doing. And the fact that she, that's kind of told around her. Not all characters are given this grand character arc that she is. So she's given an arc, and it's one of those things where that can fall flat sometimes. If it's kind of centralized around one character, but it is a limited series. They're not doing like a season 2. There's not multiple seasons. It's just this one and done. But in this situation, they run into the situation where, as they're making their way along, they stumble across this like Native American massacre. Like, they were all massacred by some horse thieves or just thieves in general. And so the main guys track her down, but when they track them down, the Native Americans come back, see that this happened, assume that it's the remaining trail people, and slaughter almost all of them. And they shoot an arrow through her, and basically she ends up telling them that she was married to a Native American, and she speaks language, Native American language, and they ended up doing that. But the damage has been done. Like, she got an arrow through the chest. And really, that's in the first 5 seconds. So that's really not spoiling too much, is that if you watch the first minute to a minute and a half of 1883, she gets an arrow through the chest. Like, they do that and then they tell the remaining in flashback. So it's not like I'm spoiling a ton for you. What I will spoil for you is that the whole hook of it is that, you assuming as a lead character, and with the potential, because they didn't really say whether there'd be a season 2 or not, that she's your narrator and main character, that she would survive. But alas, it is 1883. They didn't have medicine for any of this stuff, and apparently, they said, I believe it went through her liver, and her liver's kind of leaking, and then basically she's going to die. So they tried to lie to her and pretend like everything's fine, but ultimately she found out like she's not fine. She's going to die. So she decided to pick a spot where she's going to die and be buried. And really that spot eventually became Yellowstone. That's kind of the tie-in, the loose tie-in with Yellowstone. But, that's a pretty good show. If you ever want to see a gritty version of the Oregon Trail, and you're not a banker, it's not like a thing where, that was always the trick. You would select a banker on the Oregon Trail, and you'd have a nice, like $1,800 to start off with. So anytime you lost stuff, you can run into a fort and buy a bunch of supplies. But these people, were getting robbed left and right. So they didn't really have the supplies to, and they had to leave all their stuff. They were carrying everything they owned, like full-size pianos and stuff, and then Sam Elliott's like, what are you doing? Like, you can't travel with all this stuff. You gotta abandon it. So they had to abandon all their stuff, and then eventually died, most of them, on the trail, or just, were left way worse for wear. It's gritty. I remember my wife doesn't hardly watch anything like that, and she was watching the tail end, because I was like, I'm gonna watch the tail end. And she's like, wow, this is an uplifting show. It's like, yeah, that's what you're getting into. It's not going to be like fun smiles and games. Like, this is gritty and dark and rough and exactly what you're looking for if you want to experience 1883 traveling the Oregon Trail. Like, there was a few bright spots with a lot of just, man. And it's the point where, like, you didn't really care about too many of these people because, they come into this trail and then, then they end up getting killed off or, killing themselves or getting sick and dying or whatever. And it's like, man, you don't even know hardly any of them. There's so many people that you just don't know any of them. But look, as far as the cast goes, cast is good all around. It was a good show all around. I recommend it. I would give it probably 4 out of 5 stars. I haven't found anything that's perfect yet. Nothing that, and I'm like, wow, this is the greatest show I've ever seen. And I hold that high regard. But did it hold my interest? Yes. A lot of people are saying, is it better than Yellowstone? I don't know if it's better than Yellowstone, but Yellowstone has had more seasons to flesh things out. As a limited series, like, would I like to see more of it? And, you could certainly do ones of different experiences traveling the trail. But since I had never seen, or at least not that I can remember seeing anything that showed the rigors of traveling the Oregon Trail, then I certainly am all for it. I really like the show. I recommend you watch it. Now, do you have to watch Yellowstone to watch 1883? No. It is very loosely put in the same universe. They don't really tie it in at all. But there is a scene in season 3 where they show the characters in kind of a flashback. They show some of the characters in this show that maybe you might want to see something like that. But you don't have to watch one for the other. But yeah, that'll wrap it up. Just wanted to get you a quick review, 1883. I'm not going to do, I don't think, too many episode for episode ones. It's just a flat, like, if it's a season, if it's a limited series, I'm going to watch the whole thing, and I'm going to review it for you. And it helps to get my thoughts out so I don't have to have them rattling around in my head. As stated, I work from home. I don't get to talk to anybody about shows hardly, except for my friends, and we usually talk about other stuff and don't end up getting any shows. And, my kids are too young to watch stuff like this, and my wife has no interest in stuff like this. So you are my outlet, world. But let me know your thoughts on 1883, or maybe Yellowstone as a whole. I know that Yellowstone is offshooting. I think they're doing one with, like, the the 666 Ranch, or I can't remember what the ranch is called. 46's Ranch. That's going to be a spinoff, and then they're doing another spinoff where it's like the 1930s. So they're doing quite a few spin-offs off of Yellowstone. They're really doing the Walking Dead thing, where they're really, they're wringing out the washcloth to make sure to get every drop out of there that they can. But 1883, I liked it. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments down below. And guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Then support me on Patreon like John Bailey did. You can do so. Link is in the description below. If you'd like to buy I forgot that. Like to buy a t-shirt, a Tomwashere t-shirt, you can do so at Spreadshirt, as well as links to my eBay store, Facebook page, Instagram, Clubhouse, and the Pennsylvania Autograph Collectors Association. Links are in the description below. Guys, thank you so much for watching. And until the next review, we will see you soon. But until then, bye everyone.